Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. This is a quick video about environmental variables and arguments in Deno and Node. First, let's just talk about the concept. Whenever you run a command in your shell, so that's your terminal, and again, whether you're running your shell here in VS Code or you're running a separate terminal over here, it's the same thing. The terminal is a shell environment. It's the context in which you run stuff, run scripts, run programs, run whatever. Okay, now that environment can have its own variables. So for example, I'm in a bash terminal. So that's different than if you're using Windows with PowerShell and all that. But I could export a variable and say, hey, cheese equals bread. Okay, and now I can echo cheese. You get the prefix with a $sign, that's just a thing. And see, there's this variable in there. That's what environmental variables are. They're variables that don't belong to your code. So you're not defining them in your code, you're defining them in your shell. The shell environment has them and your code can access them. Okay? Oftentimes we use libraries like .env libraries. Libraries allow us to store variables through YAML, TOML, JSON. But at the end of the day, it's still doing the same thing. It's just adding that variable to that shell session. So again, if I see right now I could echo cheese, but if I open up a separate terminal and I try to echo cheese, it doesn't exist because each shell session is unique. Okay, has its own variables and whatnot. So you're defining the variables within that context. Okay. Cool. So that's what a environmental variable is. So generally when you're writing a command, you can always put the environmental variables first. So I can say, hey, let's do cheese equals Gouda, so that's the environmental variable. Echo is a command that I'm running, so I'm running the echo command, and then the command can receive arguments, which are anything after the command. So I'm saying, hey, I want you to echo this variable, cheese. And see, since I'm defining the variable before the command, I can pass the variable as an argument because it'll already be defined. So I go, boop. Let me try it again. I think it's because this has to be defined before. So let's try this. Okay, let's see if I do this. I like cheese. Nope. Okay. Yeah, you have to define the variable. And then technically, if you define the variable at the beginning of a process like this, so you notice I'm defining the variable not in a separate export statement like I did over here, but basically the difference here is that this defines it not just for that one terminal session, but for that one command. So basically this is looking for a cheese that I had already defined it beforehand, but this was defined during the execution and then is undone at the end of the execution. Okay, but that's the basic idea. Like, this is an environmental variable here. This is a command. This is an argument to the command. Okay, the cool thing is you can access all these things in your scripts. So in Node, actually let's do Deno first. Okay, in Deno, the way you would access it, so let's console.log, an environmental variable. There's a Deno object, and we would say deno.env for environmental variables. It's a built-in object built into Deno. Okay, let's take a look over here real quick. Okay. And then what happens here is that the way the env object works, it's more like a map. So you have to use a getter to get the specific environmental variable that you want. So I want to get, we'll call it Deno env. Usually you do some sort of variable like this to denote whether you're in development or production. So I'm going to get this variable and we'll console log it. And then the args are in deno.args. Okay. So now let's try to run the command. So first we'll define the variable. So deno underscore env, because again, environmental variables always come first. So development. Then it's the command, which is deno. And then everything after the command are arguments. Okay, now the deno command looks for very particular arguments. So let's see here. Dash dash allow env because we want to allow environmental variables. Then we want to name the file that we're going to run, which is index.js. And then we can actually start passing in arguments specifically to this script. So we'll say cheese, bread, milk. Now if I hit enter, let's see here. Context. Deno. Oh, I see. I forgot the word run. Deno run is the command. Well, run is an argument, but specifying, like, Deno is really like the core command. It's like one Deno script, and then anything after the command name is arguments that tells that what to do. But yeah, here we go. Let's run that. And you see, so here is the console log of the environmental variable. And then here is the console log of all the arguments. And see, this is nice. This is a really nice, clean array of arguments. Okay, it's anything after the name of the file. Okay, now let's try to do this in Node and take a look at some of the differences. Because again, Node is a little bit older. There's going to be certain things you might like better about the way Node does it, and some things you might like less. But Deno is still continuously being developed, but you know, it came out with a certain way of doing things. So in Node, environmental variables, everything's just done through the process object. So in the same way, so that Deno object is the same thing as like this process object. It's saying, hey, you are running a process in your shell. Here's all the details about that process. One of the details I want are the environmental variables. So you have this big object called .env that has every single environmental variable in your shell. So I just want to get the node env variable because that's the one I'm going to define. Console.log. Now let's get the arguments, and that's going to be in an array called process.argv for arg vector. Vector is just another word for an array. Kind of. Okay, so now if I do the same thing here, I say node env equals development. And now the command is node. Node, everything is automatically on. That's sort of like the big difference. Like in Deno, everything's off by default. So if you want to use certain features, you always have to flip them on with these flags: allow env, allow net, allow write, allow read, etc. Well, Node, everything is everything's on by default, which is theoretically less secure because things can just write the files, use your internet connection without having to ask. Okay, node env development. Node is the command. Okay, we're going to run the file index.js, and then we're going to pass it some arguments. Once again, cheese, bread, milk. In each space just means another argument. So we run it, and see, we get something a little bit different. We still get the same like console log of the environment variable, but the array of arguments is slightly different. There's these two arguments that are added ahead of time. So you get this always the first argument is always going to be the location of the node binary. Like, where is it running? What is the thing that is running Node? Like, what is Node running? And then the file that Node is running. So it's always going to be the first two arguments. So really, your arguments, the ones that you pass in the command line, don't start till after the third spot. So something you have to keep in mind. Very typical, you'll see something like this, like const args equals. Actually, I'll do something like more like this. It'll be like const comma dot args using the rest operator equals process dot arg. Now if we console log args, you'll see that like what I did is that by using destructuring in the thread operator, I removed the first two elements and put the remainder in this new array called args. And see, then you end up having, so that, you'll see that pattern. So Deno just kind of skips that part and just gives you this out of the gate. So, but otherwise, like, that's how you do it. So you want to create scripts that take arguments, that take that make use of environmental variables. That's how you do it. Okay, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, whether you're doing an Express backend app or you're working with React. Like, this is how you take advantage of these things in these environments. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Slack and Discord communities over there at devnurture.com. See you all next time.